to go over your study guide that's involving rate of change and direct variation. So I recommend fast forwarding to the problems that you have questions with because I'm going to go over every question. So if I look at number one says at the beginning of the day you had 10 gallons of gas in your car. After driving 4 hours, you had 2 gallons of gas in your car. What is the rate of change? So I see the word rate of change and I instantly say, okay, rate of change is a fancy word for slope. So I'm going to make a table. And I always remember X is time. So it says at the beginning of the day, well, at the beginning of the day, that's at 0. I have 10 gallons of gas in my car. And after driving 4 hours, I have 2 gallons of gas in my car. So to find the rate of change, which just means slope, I am going to do y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So 10 over minus 2 is 8. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2 gallons per hour. Remember how you write your units is y over x. It's your y value, which is your gallons of gas, over your x values, which is hours. If you don't include units, you will lose a point on your test, so you want to be careful. It's negative because the longer you drive, your gas is decreasing. So if we go ahead and we look at number 2, number 2 says, after 3 days with a new phone, a student had 45 selfies on their camera roll. After 15 days, the same student took 220 selfies. What is the average rate of change? So I see rate of change. I know that means slope, so I'm going to draw a table. X is usually time, so I have days. After 3 days, they took 45 selfies. And after 15 days, they had 225 selfies saved. Y1 minus Y2 all over X1 minus X2. So I have 45 minus 225. I get negative 180. All over 3 minus 15 is negative 12. Negative 180 divided by negative 12, that's going to become positive. So that's 15. And then I got to do y over x. So y represented selfies per x represented days. So day. So on average, they were doing about 15 selfies a day. If we go ahead and we keep looking, it says, which equation below shows direct variation? If an equation does show direct variation, what is the constant of variation? So in order for something to be a direct variation, it has to be in y equals kx form. So if I look at letter A is in y equals kx form, so is this a direct variation? Yes, because B has to equal 0, which it does. So my constant of variation is k, which is slope, which is negative 2 over 3. If I look at B, I can't tell yet because y is not alone. So I'm going to add 4y to the other side, so then 4y is no longer negative. So I have 2x equals 4y, divide by 4. So I have y equals 1/2 x. So is this a direct variation? Yes, because b equals 0. So k equals 1/2. Okay. If I go ahead and I look at C, I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 9x on both sides. So I have 10y equals negative 9x plus 3. And then I'm going to divide by 10. So I have y equals negative 9x over 10 plus 3 over 10. Is that a direct variation? No, because b does not equal 0. And if I look at the last one, I'm going to go ahead and add y again to the other side. You could have added 3x. I'm just adding y because it's going to make my life easier. So I'll have negative 3x equals y. Now notice y is alone. Does b equal 0? Yes, so it's a direct variation. So k equals negative 3 or negative 3 over 1. Okay? I'm just going to erase this so we can look at those next questions. I'll look at example 4. Example 4 says, given that y varies directly with x. Stop. Whenever you see varies directly, you're going to write y equals kx on your paper. Write a direct variation equation. All right, so I see y is 5, so I'm going to plug in 5, and I see negative 10 is x. So now I'm going to solve for k by dividing by negative 10. So I get k equals negative 1/2. If you stop here, you're going to lose a point because the direction said write a direct variation equation. So what I'm going to do is I have to take this a step further and say y equals negative 1/2 x. That's my answer. So be careful. Make sure every time you find k, you go that one step further. If I look at b, I'm going to again write y equals kx on my paper. I'm going to plug 1/3 in for x and 2 in for y. And doesn't this just mean the same thing as this? So then I'm just going to get rid of fractions. Multiply by 3 on both sides. So I get 6 equals 1k. So that just means k equals 6. So I'm going to take it that one step further and write my equation, y equals 6x. If I do the last one, y equals kx, y is 12, x is negative 3. I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides, so I get k equals negative 4. Take it one step further, y equals negative 4x. We go ahead and we look at example 5. Which of the graphs must be shown as a direct variation? There might be more than one answer. In order for a graph to be a direct variation, what has to be true? Must pass through the origin. So A has to passes through the origin, and D passes through the origin. Some people are asked why not B? B is not a line. So because B is not a line, it's not a direct variation. If we go ahead and we look at example 6, looking at the tables below, state whether or not a direct variation exists, and if so, determine the equation. So whenever I have a table, I add an extra row to find k. How I find k is I do y divided by x, y divided by x. So 1 divided by 1 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2, 9 divided by 3 is 3, y divided by x, 12 divided by 4 is 3, 15 divided by 5 is 3. Do these all match? No, so it's not a direct variation, so I can't fill anything out. I just leave it blank. If I do B, in order to determine that it's a direct variation, I'm going to go ahead and add an extra row and call that k. And how I find k is I do y divided by x. So y divided by x, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Y divided by x, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Y divided by x is 2. Y divided by x is 2. Y divided by x is 2. So, yes, a direct variation exists. K equals 2. So my equation is y equals 2x. Okay? If I go ahead and I look at this one, this number 7 is a little confusing because it's all out of like sequence, but that's okay, we'll figure it out. So it says there are about 200 calories and 50 grams of Swiss cheese. Willie ate 70 grams of this cheese. About how many calories were in this cheese if the number of calories varies directly as the weight of cheese? So I see this number of calories varies directly as the weight of cheese. So I'm instantly going to write y equals kx down on my paper. And now I'm going to translate, instead of y and x, I'm going to use context of the problem. So calories comes first, so that's y. And weight comes last, so that's w. Or and that replaces x. So now I'm going to go back to the top of my example. It says there are 200 calories and 50 grams of Swiss cheese. So if I plug in 200 calories for 50 grams, that's the weight, how could I find k? Well, I would just divide by 50 on both sides. So 200 divided by 50, k is 4. So now I'm going to write my equation, c equals 4w. You okay with how I got that? So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at my last sentence. Willie ate 70 grams of cheese. How many calories is that? So 70 grams. Am I going to plug that into C or W? I'm going to plug that into the weight. So 4 times 70 is 280 calories. This problem is a little jumbled on your test. It's very straightforward. So it will first say, it'll give you the synopsis. It'll say, write the equation using variables. Then it will say, find K. Then it will have information to answer some kind of question like that. It'll be like part A, part B, part C, part D, and you just follow along with what it says. It's very straightforward. If I look at the next one says, the cost of filling up your car with gas varies directly with the number of gallons you're purchasing. Stop. I see varies directly. I'm going to write y equals kx on my paper. I see y equals kx. I'm now going to turn this into context of the problem. So it says the cost, so that's going to be for y, with the number of gallons, that's going to be x. So I have cost equals number of gallons, varies directly with number of gallons. It says if you spend $18 filling up your car, you bought 8 gallons of gas. So I'm going to use this to help find K. So $18 is the cost because that's what C stands for. And 8 is the number of gallons because that's what G stands for. So to solve for K, I'm going to divide. And 18 divided by 8 is 2.25. I'm okay if you give me a decimal or a fraction. The choice is yours. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write my equation. C equals 2.25 G. Now I'm going to answer the last question. How many gallons of gas did you put in your car if you spent this much money? So because I spent this much money, I'm going to plug that in for C. And then I'm going to divide by 2.25 to find my number of gallons. So if I type that in my calculator, I get 13 equals G, so it's 13 gallons. Okay? And last one. Use the graph to the right to represent a direct variation situation. Rebecca can read 4 pages in 2 minutes. So, okay, I'm going to make a table and see if that can help my brain. Remember, X is usually time. So 2 minutes is time, 4 pages. Does anybody remember how I find the slope if I only have one ordered pair? Y divided by X. So 4 divided by 2 is just 2 over 1. So if I come over to my graph and I try to graph it, direct variation has to go through what point on your graph? Has to go through the origin. So now I'm going to go rise 2 over 1, rise 2 over 1. Rise 2 over 1, rise 2 over 1, rise 2 over 1. And I can go off my grid, whatever. But it says, based on my graph, how many pages can Rebecca read in 8 minutes? So I would just take my x-axis and count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's going to be that point up there, what ends up being 16 pages. Another quick way you could do that is 2 times what gets you 4? 2. So 8 times 2 gets me 16. Keep in mind, study guides are normally harder than your test. Your test is very straightforward if you are able to do your warm-up and you are able to do most of the problems on this study guide.